Hello, my dear learners, viewers. This is Muhammad Azhar Islam Juel from Barrister Jamiluddin Sarkar Collegiate School Online School. Today we will discuss about and important topics from class 7 to 10, and it is a part of transformation of sentences, and this is voice. Today we will discuss about voice and their changes. So voice, we know what is voice. We must know what is voice and the definition of voice. Voice is a form of a verb. Voice is a form of a verb that works according to the subject or object. I repeat, voice is the way of the action of a verb. The voice of the action of a verb. The ways of the action of a verb or of a verb according to the subject or object. Action of a verb, action, ways of action, ways of the action of a verb. This is the most important of verb. This is ways of action of a verb according to the subject and according to sometimes subject is active and sometimes object is active, and this is called voice. And we know voices are of two kinds. Voices are of two kinds: active voice and passive voice. Active voice, passive voice. Active voice and passive voice. We know active voice. We discussed earlier, voice is the way of a verb, form of verb that can function in a sentence according to the subject or object. And when the subject is active, subject is active. When the subject is active, this is active voice, and when the object is active, then it is passive voice. There are two kinds of voices, active voice and passive voice. When the subject is active in a sentence, this is called active voice, and when the object is active in a sentence, this is called passive voice. And we come to know clearly that let's see the example of active or passive. I see a bird. Here subject I and the verb see, object the bird. And when the object comes first, this is active voice, and a bird is seen by me. This is passive voice. This is passive voice. Active voice, subject is active, but passive voice, object comes first and it is active. It is used as subject. Object used as subject, and this is called passive voice. So the difference between active and passive: active voice, subject is active; passive voice, object is active. And the form of a verb that can work, that can is the ways of verb that can work according to their subject or object. Let's see. Now we will discuss about the changes of voice active to passive. Active to passive. The rules of voice active to passive. The rules from active to passive. We know voices are of two kinds, active, passive, and we also know when the subject is active, that is called active voice, when the object is active, that is called passive voice. And the difference between them, active or passive: active voice begins with subject and verb. There is verb, and verb is the subject of the verb is active, and when there is verb but of that verb the object is active. This is the difference. Let's see some changes, rules of active to passive. When we go to change from active to passive, we must know some rules, follow some rules, and the rules is: number 1, the subject of the active voice will be the object in the passive voice. The subject of the active voice will be the object in the passive voice. And 2, the object similarly the object of the active voice will be the subject in the passive voice. the subject of the active voice will be the object in the passive voice. Similarly, the object in the of the active voice will be the subject in the passive voice. Object, subject, object. And before the object of the passive voice, there will be a preposition. And the prepositions are maybe by, to, in, at, with. These are the preposition. Any one of these will be used according to the verb. According to the verb, any one. Generally, by is the preposition that can sit before the object, but sometimes there will be another preposition, to, in, at, with. So, and this is the points, and another points after the subject of the passive voice, there must be an auxiliary verb. Sometimes, and this is the most important, auxiliary verb before the subject of the passive voice. And this is the very important. In the active voice, there will not be subject. There is no subject. Will be no subject, but there will be no verb. Auxiliary verb. But in the passive voice, auxiliary verb is the must be there, auxiliary verb. So now let's see. I repeat the rules of active to passive. When we change active to passive, then we must follow the rules. The subject of the active voice will be the object in the passive voice. The subject of the active voice will be the object in the passive voice. The object of the active voice the object of the active voice will be the subject in the passive voice. Before the object of the passive voice, there will be a preposition by. Generally by, but sometimes there will be another preposition, to, in, at, with, according to the verb. And lastly, most importantly, after the verb of the passive voice, there must be an auxiliary verb. Let's see the some examples and the structure of active to passive. Active to passive, the structure. This is active voice because the sentence begins with subject, then verb, then object, and here verb subject is active. So, and the rules is, when we want to change it passive voice, the rule is the object of the passive voice will be the active voice will be the subject in the passive voice. The first rule is the object in the active voice of the active voice will be the subject in the passive voice. So this is the first rule, and we know the number 4 rules. In the passive voice, there after the subject there will be some auxiliary verb and auxiliary verb according to the tense of the active voice. According to verb of the active voice, there will be helping verb there in the passive voice. I repeat, according to the tense of a voice of the verb of active voice, there will be an auxiliary verb. There will be an auxiliary verb in the passive voice after the subject, and the verb must be in the past participle form. Verb in the past participle form. BPP, verb in the past participle. BPP, verb in the past participle. Verb in the past participle. BPP. So I wrote here the abbreviation BPP, verb in the past participle. Then before the subject of the active voice will be the object, and there will be by. So this is the structure from active to passive, general structure from active to passive. I repeat, the subject of the active voice will be the object in the passive voice, and after the passive voice, after the subject of the passive voice, there will be an auxiliary verb according to the tense of the verb of active voice. So here we must put here some auxiliary verb according to tense, and according to persons, and the verb will be the past participle form in the passive voice. The verb will be the past participle form. In general, the most important thing is that the verb of the active voice, the main verb of the active voice, will be the past participle form in the passive voice. So verb always will be the past participle form in the passive voice, and then the subject will be the object, and before the object there will be preposition by or another preposition in or at according to the verb. So this is the rules, and now let's see some examples. He writes a letter. So here subject, verb, object, and we know writes now is in the present indefinite, so we must use auxiliary verb am, is, are according to person. So a letter will become first. In the object of the active voice will be the subject in the passive voice. So a letter will come first. Then writes is in the present indefinite. So we must put here am, is, are according to the subject, and the write will be the past participle form written. Will be the past participle form written, and the object, the subject of the passive active voice will be the object, and before the object we must put by before the object. So he will be him. He writes a letter. A letter is written by him. He writes a letter. A letter is written by him. Another example. Let's see another example. They are playing cricket. Here, cricket is subject. So cricket, and here auxiliary verb. This is in the present continuous form. So am is will be the auxiliary verb, and the verb, if the tense, there is tense of present continuous, then am being, is being, are being will be the auxiliary verb. So is being, and the verb play will be the past participle form played, and the they will be the object. Before the object we must put by, and they will be then. This is the active to passive. They are playing cricket. Cricket is being played by them. So this is the general rule. I repeat, if the when there is subject, verb, object, this is active voice, and the rules of active to passive. Object will be the subject. The subject will be the object and object will be the subject, and according to the verb, tense of verb, there will be auxiliary verb, and the main verb will be in the past participle form. And this is the, and we must remember there are 12 tenses, and according to the 12 tenses there will be different auxiliary verb. This is the most importantly to remember. So let's see some examples, more examples from active to passive. Shumi reads a book, and this is the active voice. And we know the active voice will be the passive. When the rules of active to passive, so object will be the subject here, the Abu, and the verb is now in the present indefinite tense. So the auxiliary verb will be am is are, and the verb will be in the past participle form read. So Abu is read by then Shumi. And now let's see the changes of pronoun from active to passive. Active to passive, the changes of pronoun. He will be him. She will be her. They will be them. I will be me. I will be me. We will be us. You will be you. And the name will be the name. Name, any name, any name. Name will be the same name. Just like Sumi, Shumi. But the pronoun, he, the change of persons or pronoun. Persons. He will be him. She will be her. They will be them. I will be me. We will be us. You will be you. Name will be name. This is the rules of active to passive, the general rule. So, I repeat what we have discussed earlier. Voice is the form of a verb voice of verb according to the subject and object. And we know voices are of two kinds, active and passive. And the rules of active to passive, there are rules, some rules. The subject of the active voice will be the object in the passive voice, and the object of the passive voice will be the subject in the active voice. And after the object there will be, before the object of the passive voice, there will be preposition by, sometimes in, at, with, according to the tense, and the verb of the active voice will be the past participle voice in the passive voice. These are the rules we must remember, and we will practice. If we will practice more and more, then we will be able to change active to passive. And thank you very much. Thank you for watching my today's lesson. Thank you.